Okay, our talk today we figure is going to run about 40 minutes. That's what ChatGPT told us. And after the talk, there will be food available and more beverage. And also after the talk, we invite you to come up to the side here at the front. There's a display of memorabilia. Okay? Any questions?
Okay.
So this is me first, right?
Yeah, go ahead and introduce
We're learning how to tag team. So thank you all for gathering here today to celebrate our dad, Ole Nielsen. We are Ole and Marilyn's two of their three children. I'll introduce myself and my family first. I'm Margot LaValle. And I also have here my husband, Glenn, who's over there holding a camera, and our daughter, Maya LaValle. You want to stand up, Maya, so people know who you are? There you are, yeah. Okay.
Yes, and I'm David, Ole's troubled middle child. And I would like to introduce my family. There's Paula Schwann, my wife, and my son Paul, and my son Mark, and Paul's wife Christy, and my granddaughter Layla. Yeah, take a bow, Layla. Yay for Layla, yay.
She smiled.
And I'd also like to welcome Paula's sister Pam, and her daughter Lauren. Where are you, Lauren? Who follows Ole into the profession. She's just going into second year at WCBM this year. So, who did I forget?
Well, we have to bring in Gord.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are three children, one of whom is at home and tuning in online so that's Gord and his partner Zara. So I want you all to look at the live stream camera and say, hi, Gord and Zara. Okay, now we've embarrassed them.
Yeah, introduce his son.
Okay, Gord has two sons, and one is here today. So that would be Nicholas. Where are you, Nicholas? There you are. Very happy to have Nicholas from Comox. And Dustin is down in California and getting married next week. So we're going to leave him down there, and I think he's tuning in too. So who have we missed? Okay, so next round of family we want to introduce. Dad's sister, Karen. And Karen's three kids, our cousins, are here. So Cameron and Tracy and Lise, and Tracy's husband, Richard, are all over here. Yeah, they're our camping buddies. And Uncle Jack, Dad's sister, Esther, her husband, Jack. Where's Jack? There he is, way at the back. Jack is our host today. Thank you, Jack. Yeah. I think we got everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. So on the occasion of 5 years ago, on the occasion of Dad's 90th birthday, he gave an impromptu talk about his life. And we had the presence of mind to record it. And then our good family friend Edwin, who's here today as well, took it upon himself to transcribe it. So it might be a bit unorthodox, but we're going to relate Dad's own first-person account of his formative years because it's better than anything we could produce. So Dave's going to read this.
Yeah, so I'll do my best Ole impersonation here. So in Ole's words, Ludwig Nielsen, my father, docked at Pier 21 in Halifax aboard the SS Oscar on March 10th, 1928, 10 days after Pier 21 opened. He made his way to Edmonton, seemingly on the advice of Chris Nielsen, a tinsmith he knew from his hometown, Haslev, Denmark, where he had immigrated from. No relation. There's 60 pages of fine print of Nielsen in the Copenhagen phone book. So we are not related to all those people. Maya Hansen, my mother, joined Ludwig in Edmonton in November 1928. They had met on a double date in Copenhagen shortly before his departure for Canada. After initially agreeing to join him, she changed her mind, but he managed to persuade her to follow through, and they married shortly after she arrived. Ludwig was a journeyman mechanic or machinist, an auto mechanic. In 1930, he started his own small business, Nielsen's Garage, located where the West Inn Hotel is now located in Edmonton today, just in time for the Depression. At some point, Ludwig changed his name to Louis, presumably to try to fit into the culture a bit more easily. We were poor. Mom has said that one morning when Louis was heading off to work, they literally didn't have a dime. Louis was quite religious, so they got down and prayed up a storm, and I guess it must have worked, because eventually the business succeeded and they never had to seek social assistance, called relief in those days, a fact that my mom was quite proud of. I came along in 1930, Karen in 1932, and ultimately the twins in 1940. The business must have done okay, and there's lots of stories about the Depression. By 1939, Louis had saved enough money that he was able to afford a month visit to Denmark. So the four of us, that's Mom, Dad, Karen, and I, landed in Denmark and then almost got trapped by the outbreak of World War II. We were booked to return on the Polish-American line vessel, the Politsky, scheduled to leave in early September, but the invasion of Poland made that impossible. Louis scrambled to book us a passage in October on the Swedish-American line ship, the Kungsholm. I can still remember standing in line at Göteborg, Sweden, waiting to board the ship. Anyway, we did make it to New York via a very extended northern, cold, very cold route taken to avoid U-boats. We arrived back in Edmonton, where we lived above Nielsen's Garage, which was now located on 95th Street and 106th Avenue, right beside the railroad tracks. The Transcontinental ran by us every day. The twins were born when we lived there in 1940. In 1942, it was severely damaged by a fire, and our family narrow escaped through a window over the garage roof. Maybe it was not such a terrible thing, because we wound up living in more genteel neighborhoods rather than a part of the city that deteriorated over the years. I think the environment here would have not have been at all as favorable as our new homes at 114th and 86th Street, and later 109th Avenue and 124th Street proved to be. We grew up in a loving home with strong social bonds to other Danish immigrants. My parents were founding members of the Ansgar Lutheran Church. It was pretty common on Sunday that new immigrants from Denmark would be invited home for lunch. It was all part of socializing that was a solid foundation for the family life that has extended right through to the present day. One of the things that I'm extraordinarily thankful for is my siblings and their families, and of course my children and their families. I do think we have very strong emotional extended connections to our extended family that I really appreciate. When I was growing up, say 10 to 15 years old, I spent summers working on the Logstead farm near Tollfield, which led to my interest in agriculture. I had worked in my father's garage, usually cleaning up or doing simple automotive repairs. Lying under cars with dirt falling in your eyes contrasted sharply with the natural setting of rural farm life. My mother tried to encourage me to take an interest in father's garage, saying, "Make a real business of it." I didn't bite. Perhaps if Louis had engaged me in some more complex mechanical tasks, it might have been different, but I doubt it. My first paid job was caddying when I was 15 years old, when Sea Cadets were recruited to caddy for the Thunderbird Golf Tournament in Jasper. Caddying fees ranged from $1 to $2 per round, which was more money than I'd ever seen in my life. I earned $21 in a week and converted it all into $1 bills so I could relish holding a big wad of money, which is pretty bad. At about that time, I also began cutting lawns for John Stephenson, our family friend who operated a landscape business. In high school, I started playing basketball, largely because I may have been the tallest student at the time. And through the influence of my friend Keith Aldridge, who was deeply committed to athletics, I took an interest in basketball. Our team included Jack Alford and Don Smith, who became lifelong friends. In grade 12, I started to play football with the Eastwood High School team, but this abruptly ended when I broke my arm in practice. After graduating high school, I was able to save the necessary funds to attend university after spending a year working in the control laboratory of the new Imperial Refinery. Leduc No. 1 blew in 1947, and by 1948, the company had built a new refinery in East Edmonton. Later, I worked for Simon Jensen on his farm near Stannard, Alberta. I started off in agriculture at the U of A in 1949. I tried out for the Golden Bears basketball team, coached by the somewhat famous Murray Van Vliet. It turned out that all his best players had graduated in the spring of 1949, and he was in rebuilding mode, so I was in luck. I made the team, and for the next 2 years was totally committed to the sport. In the first year, I made the starting lineup as a center, but in the second, I was displaced to the bench by a 6'6" engineer. In the first year ag, I encountered for the first time in my life a veterinarian and veterinary medicine in a class called Veterinary Medicine 1, taught by Jim O'Donoghue, an extension vet in the Department of Agriculture, an elegant gentleman wearing a Homburg hat and dressed to the nines. Until then, I had never considered a veterinary career. Now it emerged as an attractive possibility. My dream of possibly owning a farm seemed unrealistic in view of the capital outlay required. On the other hand, veterinary medicine offered an opportunity of a rural lifestyle, interesting work, and the freedom to be your own boss. In the summer of 1951, as I contemplated my future, I was employed by the PFRA in soil sampling work in southern Alberta and Saskatchewan, assessing salinized soil damaged by irrigation, as a member of a group of soil scientists and students from the University of Saskatchewan. I quite enjoyed the work and could conceive of a rewarding career in that field, in civil service or academic setting. So the fork in the road presented itself. Continue with soil science and basketball, likely leading to an institutional career, or veterinary medicine, which offered independence and a rural lifestyle. After a bit of agonizing, I chose the latter, a choice which I have not regretted. So as soon as I started over again in the DVM program in the Ontario Veterinary College in Guelph. There were at that time about 1,000 men and 150 women on campus. And for those of you who know, those numbers have reversed these days, I think. Nearly all of the students stayed in residence. We all ate in the communal dining hall, which had very good meals. Every day there would be a parade of students coming through the dining hall. So, of course, we men would check out all the women and vice versa. I immediately was attracted to a tall, dark-haired girl who got my attention. As first-year students, we did a snake dance through the town. I managed to pass near her in this event. Each first-year class has to do a skit in our communal hall, Memorial Hall, and she made an appearance in her class's presentation. Finally, I screwed up my courage to phone her and ask her out for coffee. The first thing she asked me was, "How tall are you?" And my mother was quite tall, so I think quite a low bar, though, I thought. She agreed. Her name was Marilyn Wilson, and that was my last date ever.
So, how many pages are we on? Marilyn was his dedicated life partner and gave her unwavering support for Ole's entire career. Administration was our mom's strong suit. She managed all the money, the major purchase negotiations, travel planning, and very importantly, business hospitality. Ole was the dean of 2 veterinary colleges, and he was known for his strong visionary perspective. I think it's safe to say he was not known for nailing the details of his grand plans. Rather, he relied heavily on a supporting cast to make it so, including his wife, his secretary, the associate deans, and everyone else. He had a budget for hosting, and rather than taking people out, he brought them home for Mom's amazing home-cooked meals, no matter the number of people. It could have been a few visiting academics or the whole graduating class from vet med. So.
Well, Mom and Dad did have a long, successful marriage. Dad never wore his wedding ring. As the story goes, he lost it while performing a rectal examination on a cow. Never mind that he took it off before donning the rubber glove. It is much better to leave out that detail and let the listener imagine the exact circumstances.
Dad had a work ethic that defied the stereotype of the unproductive civil servant. If you got up early in our house, you might comment that I was up at the crack of Ole. He would depart the house on his bicycle at 7 in the morning in all weather for the 5-kilometer trip to the college, and then home for family supper, and then back to the office. In the early years, our dining room table was always full of building plans. We remember when the new vet college was under construction. We had the great fun of running up and down the open atrium spiral staircases before the handrails were installed. If someone asked us what our dad did at that time, we would have told them he was in the construction business. Occasionally, we would accompany Dad to the vet college on weekends, which was very much like a trip to the circus. We would see freak show cool stuff like postmortems and calf cesareans and exotic specimens preserved in formaldehyde and all manner of live animals, including musk oxen, one of which was named Ole. He was a large bull musk ox, and when he was castrated, the staff were a little reluctant to share that news with Dad.
You keep going. Yeah.
Keep going. Dad loved his classical music. While he did not play, he always had CBC playing in the background, back in the old days when they played real music. Somebody put that in there. And he loved to attend the symphony and the opera. As teenagers, we found it difficult to sleep in when he had Tchaikovsky cranked up on the stereo on Sunday mornings. He passed on this passion to me, which inspired me to pursue ballet for many years.
Ole took up alpine skiing in 1967. Any winter long weekend was an excuse to load up the station wagon and head to Banff for a few days of skiing. In 1978, my parents purchased a modest condominium at Big White near Kelowna. Our family got very accustomed to making the 15-hour door-to-door drive to satisfy our family's addiction to alpine skiing. In later years, he would host ski weekends with his friends. In fact, his last hurrah on the ski hill was at age 82 when he joined Margot and my families, for spring skiing up at Sunshine.
Dad was an avid bird watcher. All family activities, including supper, would frequently come to a sudden and complete halt if Dad spotted an interesting bird. This spilled over into his professional life. He decided that the quintessential cultural Canadian prairie experience for some visiting dignitaries, I think they were from the Ukraine, but it could have been Russia, would be to take them out to the short grass prairie and witness the mating dance of the sharp-tailed grouse at 4 in the morning. The Nature Saskatchewan May Day bird count was an annual ritual that he enjoyed with the likes of Gary Wobesser, Lynn Oliphant, Jim Wedgwood, and Stuart Houston. I would tag along sometimes and have inherited his love of bird watching.
We will never forget the good times our families enjoyed with friends, having picnics and day hikes at Beaver Creek and Cranberry Flats. After long days of playing in the sand and water and roasting hot dogs and marshmallows, Dad would make the trek back up to the parking lot and turn the headlights on so we could actually find the car and get out of there. Many a good time spent doing that. Every Sunday afternoon, we had a tradition of going to the phys ed pool at the U of S and going for the faculty swim, and then followed by a trip to the 8th Street Dairy Queen. But we would only get dilly bars, not because they were the cheapest thing on the menu there. Camping figured very prominently in our lives too. We loved to go camping. As kids, our favorite memories, hands down, were of family camping trips. The typical embarkation process, though, was somewhat painful, as it involved loading up the car and trailer and then stopping at the vet college so Dad could finish some last-minute work, more like last hours of work, while 3 very impatient children and 1 grumpy wife who had just done all the packing waited in the car. A highly unpopular tradition that I continued with my family.
Fishing was serious business on these camping trips. Ole would take us and our cousins over here out in the canoe. The natural order of things being that Ole would paddle, we would troll and catch the fish. And the fun didn't stop there. Under Dad's supervision, the filleting process became a biology lab dissection exercise where we learned about anatomy, we explored stomach contents, and we discovered parasites. And then we ate them. The fish, not the parasites. And I carried on this practice in camping with my extended family, showing my daughter and our nieces and nephews all those interesting fish guts.
And I'm a slow learner because I still eat sushi to this day. Ole got hooked on canoeing during his time in Minnesota. He passed on his love of canoe tripping to us. We cherish wonderful memories of our family canoe trips. We have managed to block out all the other ones after years of therapy. Laugh as you might, there is some truth to that. Once, Ole compared canoe expeditions to childbirth. Somehow there is great joy and happiness when it is all over, and you forget the difficulties inherent in the process, like driving rain, all manner of biting insects, brutal portages, and constant headwinds. He was an enthusiastic member of the Vet Med canoe team, which participated in the annual Louis Riel relay race. And funny thing, if he couldn't sleep, he didn't count sheep like normal people. Instead, he told us he would retrace the routes of past canoe trips in his mind. Us children, we lobbied quite intensively for him to buy a motorboat so we could go water skiing, but they cost more than a canoe. And in hindsight, we're very thankful that he resisted our exhortations to get a motorboat.
To really be able to sell something, you must believe in the product. So if we wanted a new pet, Dad always got the pitch, and he usually came through for us. We are talking dogs, rabbits, seagulls, salamanders, snakes, lizards, gerbils, piranhas, goldfish, turtles, tortoises, and the usual assortment of birds with broken wings, which the neighborhood kids like to bring to the local veterinarian's house. On more than one occasion, we would hear our housekeeper scream for her life after finding an escaped reptile of one sort or another. Mom usually got them to rescind their resignation after spending some serious time talking them down.
As an aside, if there was ever really much of an injured animal that showed up at the door, We always referred it down the block to the Hamilton household, where a real veterinarian lived. Ole was a bit of an academic, and if the injured animal had E. coli, they were in luck. Otherwise, it was off to Dr. Hamilton's house, where he had spent considerable time in practice. So.
Okay, I think you're.
Yeah. Okay. Ole took a sabbatical leave in 1971 to do research work at the Statens Serum Institute in Copenhagen. That's in Denmark, on his favorite disease, E. coli. He recovered his fluency in Danish, his first language, and got to experience more of the culture in which he had been raised. Stepping into the research environment in a new country presented a steep learning curve, and in one of his early talks to his peers, he presented at length on the topic of lab coats. It turns out he had the wrong word. We kids all went to Danish schools and learned some Danish. Some kids learned more than others, as did our mother. She got to know, she was actually better at Danish than I was. Weekends were spent exploring Copenhagen and the surrounding areas. Our family took a road trip during the autumn potato holiday, driving through Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. Coming back, we picked up a poodle pointer puppy named Britta von Treibergen, a purebred poodle pointer hunting dog. She became a treasured family pet in spite of her propensity to eat things she shouldn't, like books, shoes, plants, spiders, Nivea cream, seatbelts, furniture, lampshades, etc. While we were on sabbatical, sometimes bad things happen to good people. And so it was that Ole and Marilyn purchased a 1971 Volvo station wagon, which we picked up at the factory in Göteborg, Sweden. Its color was a bright turquoise, but it should have been bright yellow, as in lemon. It turned out that 1971 was a legendary year for quality issues with Volvos. We vividly remember an epic failed ski trip where the Volvo suffered several serial mechanical failures, resulting in the abandonment of a trip and limping back to Edmonton on New Year's Eve with no heat, and us kids burning candles in the back to keep warm in the back seat. All of us children learned to drive on this poor excuse of a car. And I firmly believe that the stress that Ole experienced teaching the three of us to drive is likely the reason he did not live to be 100 years old.
Ole and Marilyn became empty nesters in 1982. He resigned as dean and took a second sabbatical leave to conduct research at the San Diego Zoo. He would take early morning walks through the zoo before it opened to the public, taking photos of the animals. Apparently he was in the zoo uniform, and anything in a uniform got attention. It was either going to hurt or you were getting food, so they were riveted on him. But he assembled these photos into a slideshow, which has become legendary in its ability to put the audience to sleep. Dad bought a pottery wheel when we lived in Denmark, and over time became a talented ceramic artist. When Mom and Dad retired and moved to his Edmonton acreage, Ole joined the Stony Plain Potters Guild, set up a studio in the garage, and started producing a large assortment of ceramic art. And several members of the guild are here today. Where are you? There you are. Thanks for coming. One of our family rituals was pottery lottery. Family and friends would play a 2-round game. First round, rolling doubles with dice to select treasured pieces of pottery in a pile in the middle. And then the second round, rolling doubles to steal a piece from whoever had accumulated. Competition was fierce, but we are all on speaking terms today.
Two of Dad's sisters and their spouses own property adjoining Dad's acreage. Quite an idyllic existence. They're just down the way here, 3 properties right in a row. the acreage that he retired to. So Dad and his sisters and brothers-in-law, they would take long walks along the river valley. Dad was big into fitness. And they would go through the beautiful golf course and eventually through a nature trail carved out of Ole's property by my brother Gordon. He and his sisters and various sundry dogs would walk daily, a walker's brigade that age and decrepitness slowed and shortened the route, but never ended. Continues to this day. We might actually get a walk today at the end of this.
Ole and Marilyn always went for big gardens ever since they lived in Minnesota. In fact, it was difficult to get Dad to travel during growing season, as his anxiety about the state of the garden would grow exponentially with every day he was away. And Mom would spend many hours at harvest time preparing the fruits and vegetables for canning and freezing. Dad was a serious competitor in our family's annual pumpkin growing competition. He's best known for his giant 200-plus pound monster pumpkin, and that record has yet to be bested.
In 2019, Ole lost the love of his life. Mom was diagnosed with cancer that April, and Ole cared for her until her passing away at home in early September. Dad was a cancer survivor himself, having been diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer at the young age of 65. His treatment led to chronic medical issues in later life. He did not let that get him down, but his grandkids and spouses will tell you that he did have a tendency to overshare the details of his medical conditions if you gave him the chance. His treatment led to Ole moved to an apartment at Touchmark Retirement Community in March 2025 after experiencing a few falls. But there he dove into various activities at the site, including singing with the Glee Club. I didn't really know he could sing. I'm not sure he could, actually. Exercise classes, including Zumba. I'm quite impressed. And painting classes.
As the years went on, the acknowledgments and honors started to accrue. We've been going through boxes in the house and found framed degrees, honorary memberships, and other acknowledgments. We laid them all out on the picnic table, and that's how much space it took. They covered the whole ping pong table. So if you come over to the house after we finish here, we invite you to go to the basement and have a look. So perhaps just some highlights here. In 1982, Dad received the University of Guelph Schofield Medal and presented the Schofield Lecture on Comparative Medicine. And Gord recalls that this was one that Dad particularly appreciated and valued. In 1996, he received an honorary Doctor of Law degree from the University of Saskatchewan. The presenter noted that he was the last member of his family to get a degree from the University of Saskatchewan, so he finally caught up. In 2012, after chairing the Alberta Veterinary Medicine Steering Committee, Ole was awarded the Order of the University of Calgary, acknowledging his instrumental role in the establishment of the new Faculty of Veterinary Medicine there. And there is an interesting backstory to that if you get us chatting over a glass of wine sometime. In spite of all of this, he managed to maintain a humble manner. He did in fact have an ego, but you had to look pretty hard for it.
In 2016, Dad was appointed as a member of the Order of Canada. It was a real thrill to be part of his cheerleading team, roaming about Rideau Hall and meeting some of the other overachieving inductees. The invitation that he received indicated that formal wear was absolutely required for this event, and understandably so. His wardrobe had not been refreshed since his retirement, so it was off to the thrift store to update his look. Did we mention that Dad was a product of the Depression? Unbelievably, he sniffed out an almost new tuxedo of remarkably high quality that fit him like it was custom tailored just for him. In fact, I think he was more thrilled with the deal he got on the tuxedo than with the award itself. His Order of Canada medal is over here on display, if you care to come up and have a look at it.
Okay, we're almost done. So Dad closed his 90th birthday story with these few words. Actually, there were a lot of words, but we picked a few. It's been a fun ride, great family, great colleagues. I really feel I've been blessed. So perhaps the best way to remember our father is with a quote from Bernard Shaw that was popularized by Robert F. Kennedy in 1968, and that we have shamelessly borrowed from the CVMA memorial piece that they wrote on Dad. Some men see things that they are and say, why? And I dream things of things that never were and say, why not? I think we're done.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it, folks.
Yeah, so thank you, everyone. Please feel free to hang around and chat with us. And everybody is invited over to the house just down the way here for a fantastic chili dinner. We have instructions to how to get there? We do. Yeah.
We're going to have to all tell you how to get there. It's very close by, but...
Yeah, and that will be followed by the, I think, don't we have the Viking ship that we set on fire in the North Saskatchewan? No, sorry, that was a different funeral.
Wrong ceremony.
Yeah, but anyway. So thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah.